Hi everyone, please take note of the following disclaimer. Please note that this video is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. It does not constitute financial advice. We are not registered financial advisors. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode in DIY Investing Education. And in the last two episodes, we talked about a very important account to understand as Canadian, the tax-free savings account, right? The TFSA. And in the next two episodes, we're going to cover the RRSP account. So the RRSP is the Registered Retirement Savings Plan that, by the way, sometimes, unfortunately, doesn't get as much love as the TFSA, but I really believe, my personal opinion here, that it's a very important account to understand and to take advantage of as a Canadian, especially if you're a high income earner, because it could really help with retirement down the line. And it is, just like the TFSA, a very powerful account that can compound greatly over time. So in this episode, I'm going to give you a brief overview of what I feel you should know, the real basics of the RRSP. And in the second episode, part 2, we're going to cover how withdrawals work, how taxes actually work for the RRSP account. So let's do a brief overview. And I've been using AI a lot lately, to be honest with you, the Google AI. And I just Googled RRSP overview, and I got a really good overview here. Let's go through it together, as well as the key points and key aspects to understand of the RRSP. So this is a Canadian government registered account, right? Just like the TFSA, it's registered with the Canadian government, and it's designed for, like the name says, retirement savings. And one of the massive big advantages that it has is right here, offering tax deductible contributions. What does that mean? I'll explain it in a second. And tax deferred growth. Contributions reduce taxable income. That is really cool. And investment earnings remain tax-free until withdrawal, typically during retirement when income is lower. So a really nice paragraph there that really not only explains the RRSP, but kind of also gives us hints on how it was designed or how best to use it. So what are the key advantages of the RRSP? The biggest one by far, in my opinion here, there's really two massive advantages, is contributions are tax deductible, reducing your immediate income tax bill. And the second one is really investment growth within the plan or within the account is tax sheltered until the funds are withdrawn. So let's break it down here. What does it mean that contributions are tax deductible, reducing your immediate tax bill? Well, it's simple, everyone. They're tax deductible dollar for dollar. So let's say you are in Canada and you're making $100,000 a year. Let's say you put in $10,000 in your RRSP account. So obviously throughout the year, you have your paycheck, you're paying taxes on that paycheck, right? On 100,000, 150,000, whatever it might be. As you know, obviously the higher income you're earning, the higher your taxes are going to be on your paycheck. But let's say you invest $10,000 or you deposit $10,000 in your RRSP account. Well, it's as if, and we're using the $100,000 example here. I'm simplifying it, of course. It's as if instead of making $100,000 a year, you've made $90,000 a year. So that $10,000 reduces your gross income dollar for dollar. So throughout the year, your paycheck, you're paying taxes on $100,000, right? But if you really made 90,000, right? Because you deposited or contributed 10,000 in your RRSP, you overpaid, right? You overpaid. So that enables you to have, this is what it means when it says reducing your immediate income tax bill. So you will most likely get tax savings and probably even a tax refund. The more you put in, the more it'll reduce, right? So if you put $15,000, it's as if you made 85,000, right? So obviously you've overpaid in terms of taxes, overpaid here in quotes. So the government needs to refund you those taxes, right? So that's what it means when it says contributions are tax deductible, reducing your immediate income tax bill, and it's dollar for dollar. So this is very powerful because the higher income earner you are, if you're in a high income and you're paying more tax, you're in a higher tax bracket, the more value the RSP contributions have, right? Because you're reducing your salary, if you will, quoting here, dollar for dollar. Now, the other big advantage is that investment growth within the plan is tax sheltered until the funds are withdrawn. So if you're just like the TFSA, if you're going to be investing in things like index funds or ETFs, well, those investments grow over time, and that growth, that compounding, is tax sheltered, tax free within the account until the funds are withdrawn later, right? So if you start your RSP at 20 years old and you're constantly putting in over the next decades, all that growth within, if you're making smart investment choices in that account, that's all tax sheltered, right? So it's compounding tax free throughout all the years until later. Then when you withdraw it, yes, there's going to be taxes to pay, but we're going to cover that in the second episode. We're going to talk about the taxes and the withdrawals and how that works. So those are the two massive advantages of the RRSP, and the TFSA does not have that tax deductible. Contributions are not tax deductible in the TFSA. So that's a major advantage, or that's an advantage that the RSP has over the TFSA. Yes, you got to withdraw and pay taxes when you pay taxes when you withdraw later. TFSA you don't, but contributions are tax deductible with the RSP. That's a big advantage. And just like the TFSA as well, all the compounding, all the growth in there is tax sheltered within the account, of course. So the contribution limit, so the TFSA, how it works, this is where the RSP and the TFSA is different. How much can you put in the RSP? Well, unlike the TFSA, where Canadian citizens basically get the flat same amount and any unused room could be carried forward, the RSP, you kind of got to earn the contribution room, the money you're allowed to put in. So basically, it's the lower of 18% of your 2024. This is 2024. Every year, it's always 18%, but then there's also another limit here. For example, for 2024, $32,490. And I'm on TD's website here, and a really nice article that describes the RRSP. So every year there's an RRSP dollar limit. They call it the dollar limit. So it goes up over time. So you see, for example, 2026, $33,810. So that is the maximum dollar limit you could put in, or 18. Then there's the 18%. What does it mean? Well, it's the lower of the two numbers. So let's just say you're a high-powered executive. You're making $200,000 a year. Okay, if we do 18% of that, that would be $36,000, right? So $36,000 versus 2026, it would be $33,800. Your limit would technically be the 33,810. It would be the lower of the two numbers, right? So this is the government basically showing you how powerful RSP room is, because they're really putting a cap on it. So for example, if you're making $350,000 a year, right, 18% of that would be 63,000, but you can't put 63,000. That's you got to take the lower number between the 63,000 or the 33,810, the RSP dollar limit in that year. So that's how the contribution limits work, right? And that's what it means when it says it's the lower of the two numbers. Basically, if you don't use any of your contribution room, it carries forward just like the TFSA. So any unused room carries forward year after year after year. So just like the TFSA, you could hold pretty much any kind of investments in there, like stocks and ETFs and bonds, GICs, mutual funds. So it's very similar to the TFSA in that way. And in terms of the withdrawals, in terms of the taxes, we're going to cover that in the second episode. So that is pretty much it for the RSP overview. So I also Googled what is the RSP designed for? And I think this is really, we talked about a couple of these points, but just to reiterate the fact here, tax deferred growth. So again, everything, all your investments within the RSP grow tax-free over time, like stocks, bonds, etc. So if you have decades and decades, if you're starting at 20 years old, you're starting young, and you're planning to retire at 60, let's say, that's 40 years of tax deferred growth within, right? And of course, lowering current income tax, right? Because those contributions are tax deductible, they will allow individuals to lower their taxable income and in many cases receive a tax refund. I could attune to that, or I could tell you my experience. So personally, my wife and I, we've always tried throughout the years to contribute approximately 10% of our after-tax salary to our RSP. And throughout the years, we've always received tax refunds, whether it's like $2,000 or $3,000. Of course, this is a long time ago, but it definitely helps, right? It lowers your gross income, if you will. And in some cases, you could receive a tax refund. Don't forget, if you're making big contributions, there's also tax brackets. There's tax brackets in Canada, guys. Don't forget. This is where a lot of people misunderstand or don't understand this about how powerful, rather, RSP contributions could be. Let's say you're in a high tax bracket. I'm using Ontario here, 2026, and I'm on taxtips.ca/tax rates here. Let's say you're in this tax bracket right here, 150,000. Let's say your salary is $152,000. Well, you would be in this tax bracket right here, where your income would be your regular income will be taxed 44.97%. But if you have the available room, right? If you put, let's say, let's just say you put $30,000, right? So 152, if you put $30,000 in your RSP, for example, it reduces that 152 by 30,000. So it's as if you made 122 that year. So you're going to go from this tax bracket to this tax bracket, right? You're actually going to be that RSP contribution is even going to lower your tax bracket. So you're going to be in a lower tax bracket, which means overall you're going to be paying less. So if you do big RSP contributions sometimes, or you could do it tactically, you could actually lower your tax bracket in that year. So that's actually very, very powerful as well. Now, there are other more detailed and specific things you could do with the RSP. There's the home buyer's plan, which basically you could withdraw up to $60,000 from your RSP tax-free without paying those tax consequences, but you need to repay it within 15 years. There's also a lifelong learning plan. So I'm not going to get into the details, but there are other little programs or advantages you could take advantage of with the RSP. So Google helped me out a lot here to really give you a high-level overview of how the RSP works. I highly recommend you check it out. There's plenty of articles out there. If you just Google RSP Overview Canada, you'll get a bunch of links. I found this article here, the TD Bank article, really good. I'll put a link in the description below where it gives you, it really goes a little bit more into details with the frequently asked questions, but there's many articles. But hopefully this video has given you an overview of how the RSP works. It's a very powerful account, and in summary, it's really designed to supplement your retirement income when you retire. That's really what it's designed for. And the two biggest advantages is that everything in there grows tax-free. If you start early, everyone, as you know, compounding growth really takes off near the end of the curve. So if you're investing or contributing consistently in your RSP, of course you can't go over the limit. All that growth, if you're investing it properly, that's all tax shelter, tax-free growth within the account. So it could really take off. And then every year that you're contributing, you could get a tax break as well, because all contributions are tax deductible, which can reduce your immediate income tax bill. So very, very interesting account, everyone. Again, I'll put that article if you want to learn more about it, and you could use Google, and there's a million articles, but hopefully this gives you a good overview. And next episode, we'll cover how taxes work, how withdrawals work when it comes to the RSP. So thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it, and see you next time.